Great. And I'm going to share my screen now. And hopefully you can all see that. And that's the agenda for today. So this is what I'm going to be going through. And hopefully I'll stay on track and come to time. As Odd knows, I'm a hyper-prepared person, and I've run through this about 3,000 times. So it'll obviously be exactly on schedule. Not quite. Anyway, before I get started, I'm going to just contextualize where we are, because I know that you may not know where we actually are. So this is a wee map of the UK, and I'm actually, that's me there, that's my little spot. And then this is Odd up here. So we're scattered all over the place at PTFS-Europe, and we're very happy to work with our colleagues in Bywater Solutions in all sorts of ways, but not least with Aspen. And we're so happy to be supporting this Aspen Academy today. The other thing I wanted to just show you is just a little photo of the country that we live in. And this was taken over the weekend in the very, very far west of Wales. So I was actually way out here on this tip of the Llyn Peninsula, and that's lots of beautiful heather. So I just thought, for those folks in the States who maybe don't know the UK very well, this is one of the very beautiful corners that we like to visit. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to crack on with the agenda, and we're going to be predominantly talking about the user experience, but also some of the admin settings relating to the user experience and logging in and self-registration and that kind of thing. I should say at the start that I'll be primarily using our PTFS-Europe demo Aspen system, which is this one, for the demonstration today, and it's connected to a Koha system. So most of my experience and our experience at PTFS-Europe is in linking the way that the configuration works in connection with Koha. But obviously Aspen connects to other library systems. So there are some configurations relating to how you configure the sign-in and the self-registration that are specific to other systems. And maybe if there are questions about that, you can pop them in the chat, and Cal and Odd can maybe support those questions as we go through. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to get to talking about signing in. So as a user, they'll come to the interface, and they get the sign in option here. And they can click on that sign in option, and they can sign in whichever way the system is configured to take their sign-in information. So we've got ours configured to support a username and a password. And there are a number of different combinations of login options, including barcode and PIN and username and password that Aspen supports. And it does depend on your ILS, your library management system, as to what configurations you can use. But ours is configured to use username and password. And it does enable a forgotten password option here. And then I'll come on to the self-registration process that's enabled via that register for a new library card link there. If I just log in as an admin user for now, just so I can show you the configuration associated with this sign-in box, and then I'll sign in a bit as a library user and show you more detailed aspects of what the login enables for you as a user and your user experience. So I'm going to sign in as a librarian account. So that's my username and my password, which is hashed out there. And I'm going to sign in. And that's taken me into my account, but I'm not going to look at that for now, because I'm going to focus on the administration side as a librarian, just to see how those login details are configured. And you find the configuration for signing in, for registration and for sign-in options under the primary configuration and under the library system that you're interested in looking at. So in this case, we have a number of different libraries associated with this Aspen. I'm going to just look at the main one, the interface that I'm in just at the moment, and look at the settings in there. And the login settings are under ILS account integration here. And if I scroll down and I get to the login box here, this is where I can configure a lot of the login options in relation to that pop-up that we've just been looking at. So showing the login button, preventing logins, and preventing expired cards to log in. And then you can configure the labels. So those labels we saw of username and password, we can write in what we want those to say, so the language that your users are used to using. And then here we've got some notes that we can enter, so we can have some notes appearing on that login box. So I'll just put, here are some notes, login notes, and we'll save that in a minute. And then we've got a couple of tick boxes here. So enable that forgotten password link on the login screen is a useful one, obviously. And this is a second option, enable the forgot barcode link. This is an option that's currently available for Koha libraries using Aspen, but does require Twilio, the SMS service, to be configured. So this would enable a user to have their barcode or username sent to them via SMS, via the Twilio service. We don't have that configured, so ticking that box won't do anything for me on this particular system. But if you did have questions about that, then there is help on the Aspen Help website, or obviously you can contact your support company to talk to you about how that can be configured and used. So I'm going to just save these settings because I've made this change here to add some login notes, and I'm just going to see the impact that that had. So I'm going to just log out again and then sign in. And there we go. Here are some login notes has appeared helpfully on that login box there. The way that the reset my password link works in our case is that it works via the Koha reset password process. So clicking that button will ask me to put in my username and my email address. And then I do have to, the patron would have to have an email address on their Koha patron account for this to work, and they would obviously have to know their username, and then hitting that button would trigger the Koha reset password process from Koha, and that process would happen, and then the password would be reset. Another way or another option that you can have is to have the users reset the password from within Aspen once they're logged in as well. And I'll show you that when we're in the user account. So I'll try and remember to show you that when I'm in the user account. Before we get any further and look at the user account in more detail, the other thing around the sign-in box is the self-registration process. And if I hit that link there, as I said, this demo system is linked to our Koha library management system, and this Aspen is configured to use the Koha's self-registration form, and I'll show you the admin for that in a minute. But if I click through on that link first of all, it's going to bring up effectively the self-registration form as exists in Koha, and as it's configured in Koha, and all of the options and fields that are available within that self-registration form, and all of the required fields are set configured by the Koha self-registration form. So that's all done in Koha configuration, and then comes through and affects what's shown and what's required over in Aspen. And that includes things like any of the additional information fields that you might add in Koha on the self-reg form. So we've got a little marketing opt-in additional field in our Koha self-reg form that comes through into Aspen as well. So you can add that. And because this is going to trigger the Koha self-registration process, then it's going to complete the self-registration in Koha once the user fills in and submits this form. And then it's going to set up a patron account in Koha with the patron type, the patron category that is configured to be set up by the self-reg process in Koha, and with whatever restrictions in terms of access that patron category has. So many of our libraries will have a sort of self-reg patron category, a sort of temporary patron category that's set up by the self-reg process, and then the library staff would complete the registration, and that would then give them the correct patron category and therefore give them the correct levels of access. So you could configure that so that somebody has access to certain resources straight away, but not to other resources or other functions within the system. So that's self-registration. And if I just go back to logging in and sign in again as a librarian, I'll just show you where that is configured, and sign in again, and then jump into administration again. And if I scroll down to the library system and into our main demo system, and again, it's under ILS and account integration, and it is down here under self-registration. And we have selected here ILS-based self-registration. So hence it's using the form from Koha. But you can set this up to either not allow self-registration, or to redirect to a different URL and use a different URL for the self-registration process if you want to handle that outside of Koha, outside of Aspen. So that's the self-registration process. Let me just check in my notes that I've shown you everything that I wanted to. I think I have. So I'm going to move on now to logging in. Are there any questions that I need to address at this point? I can't see any chat icons, so I'm going to guess no. I'm going to sign out again. And now I'm going to start signing in as a patron to start showing you some of the patron related permissions. Actually, just before I do that, I am going to mention single sign-on, because as well as username, password, username, PIN type login processes, you can enable single sign-on on Aspen. And so if I just quickly show you one of our customer sites, this is Glasgow Kelvin College, and this is their Aspen. And you can see if I click on their sign-in link here, it's actually going to take me to their Microsoft single sign-on login and ask for me to log in using my Microsoft account. And that would enable the login in Aspen for them. So they have SSO enabled on that Aspen, and as do a couple of our others. And that's a SAML2 based single sign-on authentication process. The configuration for that is more complicated than I have the qualification to explain, so I won't try to do that. However, if you did want support enabling or looking into single sign-on, then just talk to your support company about that, Bywater or PTFS-Europe, and we can help you with the configuration for that. And there is some guidance on the configuration on the help site as well. Okay, I'm going to now just log in here as a normal user. So the user I'm going to choose this time is this one, Alt A. That's me, Andrew. So I'm going to just log in with that user. And what I'm going to find is a second pop-up box pops up for this user, asking me for my two-factor authentication. So if I, and Aspen enables two-factor authentication via email. So it's an email process, and I've been sent an email. I'm just looking on my phone here for that code that's been sent to me, 609430. And that's going to verify me and log me in. So two-factor authentication is obviously something you can enable. And once it's been set up and turned on, then the user can configure that or set it up under their security settings, under their account settings. So if I were to go and look at that security settings, it's telling me here that for this account, two-factor authentication is turned on, and I could turn it off, and I can generate backup codes. Those of you familiar with two-factor authentication will know about the concept of backup codes, and Aspen can generate some backup codes for using if the email method doesn't work for whatever reason, or you don't have access to your email, but you have got those codes written down somewhere, and you can use those one-time codes to get you in. So that's good to know about. If I again just log out of here and I log in now as a library user again, I'm just going to show you where that two-factor authentication configuration is to turn it on, and it's down under primary configuration, and here under its own menu item of two-factor authentication. And you do have to have permissions as an admin user to access two-factor authentication settings. As with many of the settings, they're permission controlled. But if I were to go in to look at what you can set up, so you can set up to say whether two-factor authentication is on or not, and whether it's optional or whether it's mandatory, and a message to show if somebody wasn't able to verify their two-factor authentication process. You can set up which libraries it's configured to be active for, and you can also set up which patron types it is enabled for. So these are our patron types coming through. And if I just show you that the difference between a couple of accounts. So I've got one of my patron categories here, junior, as not enabled. And if I just log out here, actually, before I log out, I'll just look at this user account. And this account is a staff member. So I have got the security settings for this account, but it wasn't turned on, which is why when I logged in as l.old, librarian.old, I didn't get prompted for two-factor authentication like I did with a.old. But if I log out of this user and I log in now as a juvenile account, so I've got an account for Hector. Hector is the little doggy that was in that picture I showed you. Hector's a juvenile. If I log him in under his account settings, he doesn't have that security settings showing under his user account, because as I just showed you in the administration, I disabled two-factor authentication for juvenile patrons, patron categories. So you can make that control for two-factor authentication granular. You could make it so that it was only set for staff users, for example, and you could mandate it for staff users. We've got quite a lot of our public sector organizations in the UK who now do mandate two-factor authentication for admin access accounts, and that might be a scenario where you wanted to use that sort of granularity of permissions that Aspen has. Okay, I'm going to sign out of this account. I'm going to sign back in again as my old A account. And I am going to, again, get another code. So I will, one of the things that we're going to work on, I think one of our developers is working on this now actually, is a persistent remembering of two-factor authentication logins for a period of time or for a session, just to make it not quite so onerous. It can be potentially set as a setting. So that's one of the development things that we're going to be having a look at. Right. Okay. The last thing relating to logins that I'm just going to show you actually is the other way of resetting your passwords and PINs. I mentioned when I showed you the administration that you could tick the box to enable resetting your password within Aspen. I've set that up. So on our academic libraries site, this one here is on the same Aspen, but it's a different library system. I'm going to sign into this one as Hector, and I'm going to show you under account settings on this particular system. I do have this reset PIN password option popping up because for this particular library, I've said, yes, we do enable within Aspen resetting of the PIN password, and the controls over how many characters you require in your passwords is shown there. You set that in the configuration, and that has to be in line with your the requirements of your ILS, in this case, within the requirements of Koha. So our Koha passwords have to be a minimum of 9 characters and enable numerics, alphanumerics, and special characters. So those settings you set in Aspen as well. So that's the last little thing I wanted to show you relating to signing in and PIN passwords. Are there any questions about any of that? So the sign-in process, the PIN password, self-registration, anything like that before I start to have a tour around the user account and other aspects of the user account? Nothing? I'm not, oh, there's something popped up in the chat. Ah, that's from Ud. Thank you, Ud. Great. I will carry on. Okay, so I've logged in. I've logged in this time with my Andrew Auld user account, the one that had two-factor authentication. And there's about 1 million messages showing up for me at the moment. And I've left them all up for reasons that I'm going to be talking about linked accounts shortly. And I wanted to leave that message up showing. But when you log in, it's important to know that the users, when they log in, they land straight away on this My Account screen here. They can access this My Account and all the things that are under their account via this link here. Also, they can access specific parts of the My Account here. So if I was somewhere else on the system and I was browsing away, looking at Harry Potter titles, and I suddenly wanted to check out, or I've had Harry Potter out before, I want to look at, for example, my reading history, I can jump straight to it there. So for the users, it's very easy to jump straight into different parts of their account from wherever they are in the system, because this set of menu options here is persistent on every screen in Aspen that the user is on, so they can easily jump to that. The other way they can get to their account is actually, if they're this type of person, they can put, and I'm probably getting the thing wrong here, but I think that's right. They can just type the URL of their URL / my account, respecting the capitalization there. So that's another option if they wanted to save a link, for example, somewhere else. So that's how to get to your My account. And you can see that there's all sorts of messaging will appear. In this case, these 3 messages here are coming through from the library management system, from Koha in this case. So they're messages that the library staff have put on for this user in Koha, and they're showing up here. And then there are system messages like this one up here that's configured in Aspen settings, and that's persistent right across the whole account. And then there's this specific message here relating to my linked accounts that's popped up for me. And I'll be talking about linked accounts and how linked accounts work shortly, after I've given us a little bit of a tour of the things that a patron can look at. Actually, no, I'm going to talk about linked accounts now, because when I start to look at checked out stuff and stuff on hold, then I can refer back to the linked accounts. So linked accounts. In Aspen, there is the capability of linking accounts together for users. So for example, a parent and a child, linking the parent linking and being able to manage the child's account in Aspen. There is some configuration for this, which I'll come on to having a look at in a second. But under my account, I'm logged in as a patron here. Under my account, I've got a linked accounts page here. And if I scroll down, I'll see that there are some linked accounts. So in this case, All-Day can manage Hector's accounts. And then the other way around, Hector has the ability to manage and look at information from my account. So I can control some of that as a user, and I can disable account linking as a user as well. And I'll show you when we look at the detail here what that linking enables. But let's have a little look at the configuration first of all. And to do that, I'm actually going to sign into a different system as an admin user, so I don't have to keep logging in and logging out. So if I sign into this one as a login user, a library user, and I'm going back into the administration setting here, and I'm looking at primary configuration. Sorry, it's jumped over to the other side of the screen. Primary configuration here, and first of all, to turn on account linking is done in ILS account integration, and allow linked accounts here is where the little checkbox is to allow linked accounts. And then the other places that are relevant here are under primary configuration and patron types. I can go in and, for example, look at the adult patron category, patron type. And under this patron category, there is the two-factor authentication setting. You remember that granular setting that is also available in the two-factor authentication control here. But also there's the account linking settings. So this is where, by patron category, in this case adults, you can say what type of linking is allowed for this patron category. So you could, for example, say allow adults to only link to others and not allow other patron categories, say juveniles, to link to adults and manage adults. So you could set that, or you could set it to only be linked to. So For example, I could set adults to only link to others, and I could set juveniles to only be linked to. And that would be then the sort of one-way linkage that you might want to have configured for those two patron categories. Or you could block all linking for a particular patron category, or allow all linking as we've got it configured on this one. And then you can also configure whether or not users can remove managing account links, that button I showed you just before on the this button here, these buttons here, the remove and the disable. So that would change that setting. And then the other setting relating to account linking is this one here, which allows you to block a specific patron from linking to either another patron. So you would put the barcode of the patron that you want to block linking access to in there, and then you would put the specific barcode you don't want this patron here to link to in there, or you can tick the box to prevent this barcode here from accessing any linked account, so you can kind of block that patron from all linking. And that's, you would be creating under this setting here a list of patrons that weren't allowed to link for whatever reason. You might want to have that sort of control in place. So that's how the linked account configuration works. But let's now have a look as we browse through this logged in patron here and their account, and we'll look at some of the aspects of what that linking enables for the patron. So first of all, let's have a little look at all of the things that are available under My Accounts. First of all, if I just check, I'll go back to just the My Account screen. So this is as if they've just logged on. What do they see? Oh, and there's this this pop-up message. This is flagging up to me that I've got a linked account relationship. Do I want to allow them to continue to link to me? And yes, that's fine. And or I could hit the Manage Linked Accounts button, and it'll take me down to the same place I was a second ago, down here. So that's what this message is saying. But I'm going to dismiss that message and close. And that won't appear again for me, as that was just flagging up a new relationship. So I've landed on the My Account homepage, and there's a bit of a summary going on, as well as all the detailed links on the left. There's a bit of a summary going on, showing me how many things I've got checked out, overdue, on hold, ready for pickup, etc. Recommendations. Aspen's beautiful at building recommendations for me, and this is one of the places where I see what's being recommended to me based on my my history. So that's a nice summary. It's just telling me actually here that I've got this linkage relationship as well. And as I said, we've got messages coming through from the library management system. A lot more information is available, elements are available to me on the left-hand side as well. So I'll start to browse down through these links. Checked out titles, it's obvious. This is what I've currently got checked out, and this will show me the difference between physical materials that I've got checked out and anything I've got from an e-resource context via my ebook service or e-resource service, in this case Libby. You'd have that showing up there. And as I scroll down this list of checked out titles, one thing that you might notice if you're eagle-eyed is that this one is checked out to H. Auld. I'm logged in as Andrew Auld, and I'm seeing this because of that account linking. So I'm seeing the checked out titles of H. Auld, and I can also manage those titles. In this case, I can't manage that title. I can't do anything with it because it's actually on hold for another patron. So the renew button isn't available for that one. It's overdue, but I can't renew it because it's on hold for another patron. If I scroll down a bit further, this one here is checked out to Andrew Auld, so myself. And I'll scroll down a bit further. Here's one checked out to Hector, and this one's also overdue. I have got the ability to renew this title. So I'm going to renew up, but I've already renewed it the maximum number of times, so that's not going to work in this case. So I'm going to have to deal with my overdue or Hector's overdue and pay his fine for him before I'll be allowed to do anything again with that title. Let's see if I can renew that one. There we go. Hooray. So it does work. So that title's now renewed and won't be showing as overdue anymore. And I did that obviously for Hector, but I could equally be doing that for my own titles as well. Let's see if that one works. Renewed the maximum number of times. There we go. I'm a bit of a serial offender in terms of my overdues, I'm afraid. So let's not just worry about that too much. So that's checked out titles, physical, and if I had any resources, they would show up. And they'd also show up for my linked account as well. And if I just redo my search for Harry Potter, and I find something that I'm interested in placing a hold for, then I'm going to be able to again choose who I'm going to place that hold for. So this linked account functionality extends to the user being able to put a hold on an item for either themselves or for the accounts that they manage. Back to my account. I can, as well as seeing checked out titles, I can take a look at and manage whatever I've got on hold. So I'm going to have a little look at that. And again, physical materials and e-materials if I had any of those. And it's telling me what's available for pickup, as well as telling me what's placed on hold but not yet arrived at the library I'm picking it up from, or not yet been taken off the shelf and put on the hold, confirmed as a hold by the library staff. Anything that I've got ready, I'll have had a notification about according to my the notification settings in my account and configured on the ILS, and I'll show you that in a second. And Aspen always has this lovely while you wait, so brings up some sort of things along the shelf near that title that you might be interested in while you're waiting for a hold to be fulfilled. And anything that's still pending, you can manage the hold. You could cancel it, you could change the pickup location, and again you can look at an alternative thing while you're waiting. And the other thing that's useful about these lists actually is that you can sort them by library account. So I could sort them by things that are holds waiting for me, and then if I get down through this list, now it's sorted in that order, I'll get things waiting for Hector all grouped together at the bottom. So that's a nice way of sorting the lists, and the same sort is available in the checked out titles as well, and also in the waiting pickup. So that's a nice little thing to know about, as well as the other sort options that you have there, and the ability to hide covers as well. So that's titles on hold. And these nice little red and green things are nice and helpful as well in the user account, I always think. And the big red thing here, we're not so keen on. This is fines. And you can see again the linking accounts comes into play here, where I have Andrew Ald's fines detailed, and I also have Hector Ald's fees and fines detailed there, and I can choose to pay any or all of those fines using whatever online payment service is configured to be used for the patrons. So in this case, we've got a PayPal integration for the online payment service here, and you can select the things that you want to pay, so giving the total amount that you want to pay, and you can choose whether or not to pay for the linked account or let your children pay their own fees. Right. If we go to look further down, another aspect of the library management systems processes that you can see in Aspen is the materials requests or purchase requests, purchase suggestions, and manage those purchase suggestions. So these are coming from the purchase suggestions in Koha, and these are suggestions that I've made, and I can manage them as a user by deleting them from my list. I don't want people to know anymore that I wanted to buy a book called Stilton UK's Stinky Cheese of Choice. So I could delete that one from my purchase suggestions. And I can also jump to the new materials request form here. And again, like the self-reg form, this is a form straight out of Koha in this case, and has the same required fields that Koha would have. And you fill that in, and then it creates that purchase suggestion in Koha and then gets managed by the library staff, so that what the user then sees here in terms of the status is coming through from the process within Koha and whatever stage the process has reached in Koha. And any messages coming from the library staff are shown here as well. Right. Further down, we get to see library cards, and you can see not only the library card for me, but also for any linked accounts. And incidentally, much of this functionality is mirrored in Leader. I'm not showing you Leader today, but the app, but this library card is just made me think of it, because this is one of the really useful things about having Leader on your phone as a patron, is you can bring up your library card nice and easily, and also the library card of any linked accounts, which is a really nice feature. And I mentioned earlier recommendations. So recommendations are within the user account, and the user has some controls over their recommendations. Obviously, they can see their recommendations, what the system is generating as recommendations. But you can also, as a user, you can say, well, you might be thinking that's interesting for me, but actually, I was doing a search about nursing for somebody else, and I don't really want to keep seeing recommendations about nursing. So I want you to stop recommending that title anymore, and it will remove it from your list of recommendations. And if you do that, then the title, I'll just do that, would, I think, then appear in the not interested in titles. So there we go. Having said I'm not interested in it, it's now in my not interested in titles, so I don't lose them altogether from my recommendations. I can clear that out if I want to. And then I can also access the things that I've rated on the system as a user here, and I can look at my ratings. I'm just taking a look at the time just to make sure I'm not overrunning. We're coming on to lists and creating lists and looking at your searches and search history. Have there been any more questions that I need to address, or any questions that I need to address? Oh, recommendations getting covered in the next session. Very useful to know. I stop burbling on about recommendations in that case. So let's look at lists. Lists. So this user has a list that they've set up about bread baking, and creating and managing lists is really easy in Aspen for the users, and also for library staff to create lists that they make public for patrons to access and see as well. So in this case, this is one that this patron has set up. So it's a sort of personal list. And if I click into it, I can manage all sorts of aspects of the list. I can obviously put things on hold. I can jump through and look at what's on my list. I can look at the authors and all those sort of things that good things I'd be able to do. I can remove something from a list. I can edit the list here by changing its title, adding a description, setting whether or not it's public or private. And that's a configuration option. So you would have to have that configured to enable public settings for certain patron types. And I'll just jump out of that. I can email the list to somebody. I can print the list. I can export the list to various formats, generate citations for the list. So in academic contexts, that's very useful to create a sort of a research project list, and then generate a set of citations, or export in RIS format to import them into a citation tool. So those are all useful aspects of lists. And if I have a list like this set up, or if I don't, I can be browsing away. Let's do a different search to Harry Potter. Let's do African art, and just do a little search for African art. And I think this is a wonderful new set of titles. I think it's lovely. And so I'm going to say I want to add that to a list. Now, I don't want to add it to bread making. That's the only list I've got at the moment. So I want to create a new list. And I'm going to call this African art. And again, this is where you can configure it to be private or public, if that setting's enabled. Create the list, and it's now successfully created that list and put that particular title on that list for me. If I add this next one to the list, it's now suggesting African art. I could switch to bread making if I want to, and save that to the list. Close. I can then go back into my user account and jump to my list straight away. That useful little be able to jump to. And you can see those two titles, you can see the two lists I have, and you can see that the African art list has those two titles that I just added. So it's really easy to set up a new list and to add things to it. And I should also say that if I did my search, if I had, that didn't work for some reason. If I was hoping we were going to get some results from EBSCO Discovery there, but we don't seem to be at the moment. So I'm going to just I'm just going to skirt over that. But if the EBSCO, if you did have e-resources or an e-resource service like EBSCO Discovery linked, you can actually add things from that to a list as well. So it doesn't just have to be items from within the library catalogue. They can also be items that are coming through from the Discovery service that you can add to lists. And also lists that are publicly available can be made searchable and can pop up in searches in the combined search view here, or you can actually do searches for lists, public lists. So let's see if bread, for example, comes up, but it doesn't for whatever reasons. I obviously haven't got the keywords set up properly. Let's skirt over that and go back to my account. And the last little bit I'm going to look at here is searching and search history. So searches is where you see both your saved searches and also your session searches. So you can see within this session, these are the searches I've done. A couple of Harry Potters and African art once or twice in a bread just now, and where I did the search. And this is where if I thought that particular search was marvelous, for whatever reason, then I could save that search. But I can also redo that search, and I could actually make that search a bit more useful. So I could say that actually within this search, I'm only interested in the books within that search, and that is then the search that I can then save for future purposes. So I can save that particular faceted down search set into my saved searches, and I can see it's African art book format. So I can call that African art books and save that. And now if I go back to my account and my searches, you can see that I've got that African art books search saved with the limitation of the format books appearing in my saved searches now. And the generic African art searches are still down in my recent search history, and I can save them from there as well. So I can also delete any saved searches, and I can manage my searches like that. The other thing I'm going to just quickly look at is reading history. So the patron can see what they've been reading. They can do some nice searches within. So I quite like this. I knew there was something called green something that I'd borrowed, but I couldn't. I had a big list, 29 items. So there it is. A lovely little search within is really nice. And I can clear that search and go back to that. I can stop recording my reading history, and I can delete specific items out of my reading history. If I didn't want people to know about my cheese obsession, I could delete all the cheese titles out of here. And obviously I can do my sorts here as well and export that to CSV format. The last little section of the user account I'm going to look at is the account settings. There's one or two things under account settings that we've looked at already. For example, the linked accounts and the security settings. And then on the other system, we looked at the fact there was a link here to reset your password and PIN, which isn't on this particular system. But your users can also take a look at some of their preferences, so their language preference, their display mode preference, high contrast, and so on, whether you get prompted to reviews or not, research starters from the EBSCO Discovery Service, what your library pickup locations are, etc. So there's one or two preferences you can manage there. And personal details, this is again coming through from the library management system, so what you can manage of your personal details, and you can actually control in Aspen under settings which bits of this you enable users to update and which you don't. And then in terms of messaging settings, this is preferences around how they get their notifications, for what, by SMS or email, etc. And they can manage those settings in there, and various other things. Just before I dive out altogether, and we've got a few minutes left, I'm going to sign in one last time as a librarian and show you one last little thing about the user interface that's really useful as a librarian member, and that is this button here, which pops up under my account settings, or also I think it's under here, yes, Masquerade. And this is where you can look at Aspen masquerading as another user. So as a library member, library staff member, you could masquerade as old H, Hector. Oh, sorry, username old H. You can obviously put in the library card number if you have it, or scan it in if you've got a scanner. And I'm now masquerading as old H. So I'm no longer seeing old L's account, librarian old, I'm seeing Hector's account. So I'm seeing all the stuff here relating to Hector. So if I had somebody in front of me at the desk, and they were saying, well, I don't know how I get to see X, Y, and Z, you can actually, without logging in as them, without actually, having their password or asking them for that, you can quickly masquerade as them, and you can show them, well, this is how you browse through that, and this is what you've currently got showing as overdue. And by the way, there's a few fines that you might like to pay while you're here. Great. I think, and you end the masquerade like that. I think that's all I wanted to show you as part of this tour of the user experience. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see you all again, and see if there's anything that we need to cover in. Oh, we've got a question about messaging settings, which you've answered. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to ask? Hopefully, I've covered most things on the agenda. Great. Well, that's it for this Aspen Academy session. Thank you so much for being here and listening in. And that's it for Summer in Europe. We had a little mini series of Aspen Academy. Aude did July. So if you were interested in Aude's session, that's available. The recording of that's available on the Aspen Academy site. And obviously, this session, as Cal mentioned at the beginning, will be available on the Aspen Academy site in due course. So please access it again if you need to, or pass to your colleagues if they need to have a look. So thanks very much for joining us in Europe.
Thank you so much. And I just posted a link for the next, I think, 4 months that we have for the next session. So we hope to see you there. All right. Have a good
Thank you.
afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.